Welcome back to the Creatives Rule the World podcast. I am so excited to be here today. I am Tracy Matthews, your host, and this is our second episode. And I've been getting a lot of questions about what's going on over here. And if you haven't listened to the episode I dropped before this one, please go back. We have been in a huge transformation and reinvention as I start to create a general umbrella for all of my businesses under the one brand, Creatives Rule the World. And I know that your mind must be reeling about what is happening. Please do not make assumptions because there's nothing major happening except that we're just doing a little rebrand over here. And more than anything, one of the reasons why I wanted to rebrand this podcast was because I wanted to have amazing conversations with people outside of just the jewelry industry. There are so many inspiring stories from creative founders, from creative business leaders, from all types of creatives in this world who are doing incredible things. And I wanted to highlight some of their stories, share and inspire you with their message, and show you what is possible for you when you step into your most highest expression of your creative self. Because I truly believe that creatives rule the world and we are here and in it. So today is my birthday and I wanted to launch a very special episode on my birthday with two of my dear friends, Felicia Romero and Annette Oran. Felicia is the host of the Hi Felicia podcast and Annette is the host of the Conscious Creators podcast. Definitely go follow both of those shows. They are incredible podcast hosts themselves. But more than anything, one of the things that I really tried to create here, especially over the last 2 years here in Arizona, are female friendships. And these two women have stepped up and shown up just to be the most awesome versions of themselves and really just welcome me into their circle. And I just freaking adore them. And I know you are going to adore them too, especially when you hear the brilliance bombs, which is what I'm going to call them, because they are both so brilliant in their own light. And even though we're all decades apart, like I'm the oldest, Annette's in her 30s and Felicia is in her 40s, we all in a different season of life. And it's been really amazing to see how their conscious wisdom and authenticity has shown up in so many different ways. And so we have a great conversation today where we're going to talk about the evolution of friendships as we grow, how outgrowing with people with love and healing deep sisterhood wounds and abandonment wounds are just part of that process. The reality of having a conscious relationship or lack thereof, especially if you're in a relationship with a partner who is not conscious, and how our triggers often point to our greatest transformations. This episode is really raw, it's heartfelt, we're being super honest and very human. So regardless of where you are in your journey, whether you're navigating a shift in a friendship, maybe you're questioning your romantic partnership, or just trying to figure out where you fit in this next season of life, I just want to say this conversation is for you. There are so many great takeaways. And the funniest part was like one of the biggest takeaways was when the camera stopped rolling, but we're going to maybe bring that back for another time. So I could easily keep gushing and going for hours, but I realized that we got to get to this episode because it's a good one. So let's dive into my birthday episode with Felicia Romero and Annette Oran. Yes. Okay, so we're going to be dropping this on all of our podcasts. Why don't we go and talk a little bit about each of our shows? Why don't you start, Felicia?
Yeah, oh my gosh. The Hi Felicia podcast. And I started the podcast 7 years ago with I think more of the inspiration to just bring the whole aspect of, it used to be called the diet dropout before I rebranded. And I really just wanted to teach people that you don't have to be a slave to your fitness and your diet. And there's another way. And I was using my experiences with it. And then 2 years in, I got inspired to rebrand. And of course I had to play off of the Bye Felicia. So it's Hi Felicia. And 7 years later, 370 episodes. It's been one of the best things that I've done for my business and myself. And the consistency that I've created with it has been just, it's changed my business.
It's been amazing seeing that journey. I remember being at the podcast launch, the official diet dropout. Yeah, you did a podcast launch and that was so good to see. But yeah, I just relaunched my podcast. I actually used to be called The Heart-Led Leaders, and I decided to really rebrand it mainly because I felt like that name, and this is maybe something we're going to get into, like when it doesn't really resonate on like a deep heart level, it just, there was something that wasn't aligned with it. So I really started to like rebrand and like tied into the vision that we're building at my company Cohere. And so I decided to rename it the Conscious Creators Podcast. I'm like, why am I forgetting right now? Conscious
What's the
Creators
name of our podcast?
Exactly. I'm like, what is it? And rebranded it. And really it's all about mindset, all about spirituality, all about like really being the conscious creators that we are in our lives. And I really believe that like the conversations we have on these podcasts, like we're all about growth, we're all about personal development, and that's really what the podcast is about.
So exciting. My podcast, formerly Thrive by Design, because this will officially be released during the Creatives Rule the World podcast launch. My podcast has been around for, I think 10 years now. That's incredible. 10 years. We were at 500 and something episodes by the time we're recording this. And my mission so Thrive by Design was originally started as a jewelry marketing and business podcast for jewelry and product business owners. And about, it's been a long time, maybe 6-7 years ago, I had this idea, this brand come through called Creatives Rule the World. Mm-hmm. And my mission is to support people in leaning more into their creativity as they're growing their businesses, as they're living their lives, and to support them on their creative entrepreneurial journey, if I can say that, that word so much. Okay, so today we wanted to talk about a couple of different topics, including, so why don't we start with the friendship stuff?
Ooh,
Does that sound good?
Do it.
Okay.
Yes.
So a few years ago, I moved to Arizona, as many people heard, and I felt very lonely for many years, not only because it was COVID, but I just felt like I didn't have a community. And Felicia came into my life about 1.5 years ago through some mutual friends.
I feel like it's been a lifetime already.
I know, it feels like a lifetime. And then that's how I got to meet you, one of my favorite hype girls, which is amazing.
Yes.
And thinking about like how I've changed over the years and how my friendships have changed over the years and the kinds of people that I was calling in, originally we met at a mastermind. And I just feel so grateful for that friendship. That actually opened up so many other friendships for me here in Arizona, and it feels so good to be able to have a conscious community here and now. So I want to know why don't we start with you, Felicia? How have your friendships changed?
Ooh, this
over
is
the years?
such a great question. So just I'm 42, and I often say that I've met a lot of my soul friendships past the age of 35. And I think, especially as women, I have, some friendships that I still keep in contact with, maybe not hang out, or maybe we're just not doing the same things, but, high school, college, but we're on totally different wavelengths where like some of the things that I do, they may not be comfortable with, and that's okay. And so I realized when I was in my mid-30s that I didn't have a really strong female community that I could lean on, that I could be authentic around. I really didn't feel like I had women in my world that truly knew me, and it wasn't until I started diving into personal development and going to events and going to retreats, and just also too, I've changed. As we evolve, we start to attract those people around us. And so as I was diving into my personal development, as I was changing, as I was like getting away from the communities that really kept me small, I started to just attract and magnetize like incredible women, like Annette, for instance. Yeah. And it was it was like an instant soul connection. Again, we were talking before the podcast, she's a Sag, I'm a Gemini, it's the yin and yang, and these mutable like signs that really like when they come together, it's magic and flow. And where my strengths are not where her strengths are, and where I struggle, like she is able to like pick me up. And so we just made, a really powerful business partnership and friendship. And so like most of my really close friendships has been later in life, I think because I truly found my voice, and the way that I show up in the world attracted those types of women. So yeah.
And I love that, and ditto. I'm 35, but I feel like I'm now getting to really connect on a deeper level with women. Whereas like I feel like growing up, I always felt like I attracted really awesome like women into my life, but I've noticed that there's been seasons for different types of friendships, right? And I feel like a lot of that has to do with reinventing ourselves.
Exactly.
So like in the past, I feel like, growing up, let's just say in high school, a lot of my friends back then maybe were into a certain lifestyle that once I pivoted, once I reinvented myself, it no longer aligned in the same way. But what I have noticed, like in every single pivot or reinvention, is that there's always a few friends who will always be your lifetime friends. Even if you start evolving in a different direction. Like there's those core friends
Yep.
that are always going to be there. And I definitely have that with some childhood friends for sure, where I'm like, no matter what, I can, grow into a completely different direction. Like we're still going to be friends. And I notice now, like my friendships, like when I met Felicia, it also felt like I was in this stage of just wanting to go deeper with friends, wanting to collaborate on like
Right.
business ideas. We were just in the same frequency around like growth and business and expansion. And I feel like we met at this like very pivotal time in our lives where we had also met our partners.
Yeah.
And so it was like this new stage of life. I feel like that's when I met you. It was a completely new, just a new season of life.
Yeah.
And that's when I've also like met you in this season. So it's been really powerful. This past season, I feel like of the friends that I have right now is like expansion is like the way that I would describe it. It's been the like next level friendships.
And one thing I love about our friend group and like the women in our world, whether different facets of groups that we have, it's the intention that a lot of the friends put behind it, whether it's like, let's plan a dinner, let's plan a weekend, let's plan an event. Like, it's really setting aside the time for each other, and you have different friends for that, right? I love that you mentioned you still have those core friends from like childhood. I feel like that's actually kind of rare for women, unfortunately. It's unfortunate because, a lot of women, I know like for men it's different because Keith still has a lot of his close guy friends that he met in like grade school essentially. And so for women, as we grow and as we shift and we start families, we just don't keep in contact with a lot of those people. So I feel like for a lot of women, especially post 30, post 40, even into our 50s, we're craving that deeper friendship. And so it's so important. I feel like, something that was expressed to me many years ago, when I was on a podcast, I was speaking to a shaman on a hata. And I was just kind of opening up. She was so easy to like open up to. And she was on my podcast, but she was actually like interviewing me, laying it out and just like really opening up because it was so easy. And I was like, gosh, I just feel really frustrated that Keith is not all these things.
Yeah.
I sometimes can't go like deeper with him, or he doesn't understand these concepts. And she was like, he's your lover and he's all of these awesome things that he's over here, but he doesn't have to be all of it. And that's why you have your girlfriends. And that just like really hit home for me because I'm like, I am incredibly lucky because I can share those like really deep moments with close girlfriends, and they can be that outlet for me.
And I love that you say this because even with friends, I've noticed that. Like you have certain friends who you're like, these are my expansive friends. These are my friends that I can like tell my biggest dreams to, and they're going to believe it. They're going to envision that with me. And then there's some friends who like, even if they're lifelong friends, you might not share the same things with. So there's like different friends, not just for different seasons, but also in different, like, they add value to your life in different ways, if that makes sense. Do you experience that?
Totally.
With certain, right? There's like different levels of friendships.
It's interesting for me because since I came from a completely different background, and I'm 53. Since everyone said their names, we'll just mention that.
Gemini sun. Like I'm just gonna like introduce. That reminds me of Legally Blonde. And this is Bruiser. He's Capricorn, Taurus rising. We both are vegetarians.
We should always start. Yeah.
I know.
We need to introduce ourselves.
Leo rising, Aries moon. Gemini sun. No, but because I came from a different kind of world, I was selling my jewelry wholesale to stores. And I came from the world where most of my friends worked these like big corporate jobs. And I was the lone entrepreneur. And even when I lived out of New York, I had several entrepreneur friends, but a lot of my community there were like all working in corporate. And so to come here and find this new group of friends. And the thing that's interesting though about me is like, those core friends that you always have, it's like, I don't have to talk to them for 10 years, but we just literally pick up where we left off, because I know that as you get older, you have less time to, be reaching out to people if they're not in your local vicinity. And I think that's partially why having local friends has been so important and powerful for me.
Yeah, and I love that you speak to that. I've moved a lot. I was born in Mexico, grew up in San Diego, lived in Canada, Montreal for 4 years, then Vancouver, then Phoenix. And that's what I mean when I say like there's certain friends who are going to be your friends for a lifetime, because in every single one of those phases in my life, I've built these friendships that I'm not going to talk to every single day, but if we were to see each other, it would be like there is no time passed. And so I just think it's important to like know who those friends are, and we're lifers. We're going to be in each other's lives forever, no matter where in the world we are. Like that's the power of like those solid friends.
Yeah.
That you know that you can, it's not location independent. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a soul connection.
Yeah.
It's when you meet those people that you just literally like connect with on a deep soul level. Those are your lifelong friends.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. Have you ever had to stop being friends with someone?
Yes,
Why?
I have, but not, okay, so not like,
This is a good question. I want to hear this.
I'm thinking of one specific person, and there was nothing like wrong with the actual friendship. It was more like, and I have nothing bad to say. I'm a big believer in like karma, even past relationships. You don't find me speaking badly about my past partnerships because maybe he was different with me than he's going to be with his next person. Like maybe I brought something out in him that was not good.
Yeah.
And so like I always tend to not do that. But I think for me, if the relationship is more transactional or more one-sided, or just drains you and doesn't fulfill you. And so I found this one friendship that was really draining. Anytime that we would hang out or do a hike or do something, I just felt so tired at the end of it. And a lot of the pattern that she was in, I no longer was in terms of like dating and the kind of people we were calling in and where we were in life. And so I think for me, I just would dread meeting up. And I know that for me, that was like a sign where I'm like, oh, like I would try to find ways. And that's not fair to her. It's not fair to me. So you just naturally, that nothing like happened. It was just like this natural, like growing evolution of growing apart and just not doing things together anymore, you know? And I wish her the best. And we still text, and obviously we're Facebook friends and Instagram friends and all that. But I think where we were in life, we're just separate. Yeah.
Same. Yeah, same. For me, I can think of like a few specific friendships who were actually really close in my life. And I am a big believer in like wholeheartedly loving people for who they are, not who you want them to be. Like learning to accept people as they are is like a big thing for me. And so I remember with these core friendships, you know, I would accept them exactly as they were, but there would be certain things that they would do that I wouldn't align with, particularly as it related to like either sleeping around or like in one scenario, like just to be open, you know, I don't mind saying this on the podcast, but in one scenario, one of my friends at the time, you know, cheated on her partner. And I'm like,
oh God, I wouldn't be
things
okay
like
with
that. I started realizing, I'm like, I would be embarrassed if my partner knew that you did that, you know? And so it's like, this is no longer aligning on a values level. And I feel like that's the thing that really is the breaking point in a friendship is like when there's values that you're no longer aligning with and you start feeling you're being the coach or you're being the one that's always giving and it doesn't feel reciprocal. Like that's, to me, like that's like a deal breaker.
Right.
And so, for me, it was like a big values thing. I was like, this is, you know, if I can't proudly bring you around to other friends or to my partner, or like, I'm going to be like, oh, what is she going to say? Or, you know, like, I just don't like secrets. And so if like you can't be honest with everybody about something that you're doing, like, we probably can't be friends because there's going to be a disconnect with like one of my values, which is integrity.
Yeah. One of the things that, thank you for mentioning that. And then prior to like Annette coming in, I had some deep sisterhood wounds. I have been like completely just, even in business, like business partnerships where it went sour. And then again, back to integrity, like things that were happening behind the scenes that I didn't know about, or there was dishonesty, or there was like weird stuff behind the scenes that was kept from me. Like I've had some deep sisterhood wounds, and I'm so proud that I was able to not take that into my next relationships, even in my romantic partnership. Like I have not brought that past baggage because I've been cheated on. There's been infidelity, and I'm like, I still kept my heart open to love or to powerful friendships even after those sisterhood wounds, because a lot of it is just the work that we get to do. And also too, I look back at like who I was during that time, especially with partners, romantic partners. Oh, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, I'm the common denominator. Why am I attracting these people? And it was because I had not healed my abandonment wounds from my dad. So I was attracting men that would not commit, that would probably end up cheating on me, that were not so nice to me, that were controlling, all characteristics of my dad, right? Yeah. And so I realized, wow, I'm continuing this pattern and it's on me now to change.
Yeah.
I love that.
I feel that.
Yeah, and something I want to share too, just like to touch on what I was mentioning earlier, it's like it's different when somebody maybe takes an action that like they regret. Like people can make mistakes, but it's like if something's a repeated pattern, then, you know, and somebody's not willing to change that, then the value of like personal growth and, you know, transformation isn't really there. You know what I mean? Like it's all about like taking that leadership role in our lives of like, what do you actually want to create? Or do you want to be in the same loop, the same cycle? And so it's really interesting noticing that in friendships, right? And just like being around women who like, if we make a mistake, we could be like, I fucked up. And like, I can't believe I did that. And like, I would love your help helping me out. Like, let's get through this versus kind of being like in the victim mentality of like, this is how it is, and this is how it's going to continue to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
For
Have
sure.
you ever experienced something like that?
Oh, gosh, all of it.
Yeah.
So just a little backstory on me. Also abandonment wounds, lots of them. Also sister wounds in a lot of different ways. And for me, I think, you know, we were talking a little bit earlier about Jason. Jason and I have this joke, like I called in a growth-oriented human being, and I'm like, I'm not sure that was the best thing. And it's like, it's a joke, but also because we're always working on things. And when you have a lot of triggers and things that you're healing and moving through, it can feel chaotic at times. But we also know that we're committed to each other. And one of the things that we want to do is to always like elevate our consciousness as a couple. And for me, you know, I was married when I was younger, and this guy, you know, I don't think he meant to hurt me, but he was not a good dude. Like, he wasn't really good to me. He cheated on me. He did a lot of things, and I talk about the fact that I was married before, but I don't talk about like really what happened. And it probably was happening throughout our entire relationship. And the fact that we ended up probably getting married because my mom passed away and we were on the verge of breaking up, but he felt bad, I think, so stayed with me through that time. Then we kind of worked through it and like got to a place where we were really good. But, you know, at the core, if someone's not changing who they are, they continue to show up that way. And so that was a big lesson for me to learn, calling in really what I call an equal conscious partnership with Jason. And being able to heal, like I feel like this relationship for both of us, he's behind the camera right now, so has been a super healing relationship. And, you know, we want to be able to share that with the world. We're even starting a new podcast called I Love You, Why Do You Trigger Me So Much?
I love this so much.
You guys will have to be on with your with your men.
Yes. Because if there's no trigger, there's no transformation.
No trigger. Do you want to talk about triggers now?
Yes, we can dive into that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we think that a perfect relationship is going to be like when we meet our person that is not going to
Everything's
trigger.
so good.
Everything's going to be great. There's going to be never any fights, but then there's no growth, right? And so our partner is literally going to evoke the things that we get to look at and transform.
Yeah.
And so whatever we have unresolved within us is going to come out tenfold in a relationship. And I've definitely like 100% like noticed so many patterns that I had prior to meeting Paul that once I met him, he's like, that is not gonna work around here.
Yeah.
Like it could even be like the smallest things, like, and I can totally like be vulnerable and like dive into some, but yeah, with Paul actually, he is all about truth. And so going back to the integrity piece, I've actually been able to really sink into that value even deeper because he's like, no white lies, no like keeping things from each other. And I had this tendency from a Mexican household. I don't know if this is the case in your household, but like
I can speak to this.
yes, a lot of Mexican households, and I don't want to overly generalize. So if you're listening to this and
Our
you don't
own
relate,
experience.
this is our
my
own experience. But there's a lot of don't tell your dad.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, you know, there's just a lot of what are people going to think? Don't tell people. There's a little bit of
that was in my
energy.
white family too. So
Was it? Okay, maybe it's a family thing. But I grew up with that.
Yeah.
And so there would
Yeah.
be times, the randomest things. Like one time I went to this white party and I didn't realize it was going to be men and women. And I had told Paul that it was going to be all women because for some reason going to a white party, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be all women. It's spiritual. And then I get there and there's men and women. And I, for some reason, like felt resistance to tell Paul that in case he thought I was lying.
Yeah.
Like, so that
that's
energy
interesting.
stuff
Yeah.
would come up. I'd
Yeah.
be like, wait, why do I feel this if I didn't lie?
Yeah.
There was just this like secretive energy that I had to work through.
Yeah.
And so
I
that's
feel
been a
that.
big one that I've had to work on with Paul, because
Yeah.
nothing can get past Paul. He's
Yeah.
like, did you like not tell me about this? Like,
gosh.
you know,
Yeah.
he's very honest and just very open, and he's all about open communication. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to have open communication. I used
Yeah.
to be like triggered, and I would literally just run out of the house. I'd be like, I'm just gonna go on a drive.
Yeah.
We'll talk later. And he has helped me like confront those emotions and be able to communicate them.
Yeah.
Are you able to get
So
through it
that-
in a constructive way, or does it get into
100%. Yeah.
something?
We have this really powerful communication tool that we've learned from his mother. You've heard about this?
Oh, I want to hear about this.
Oh, my
we need this,
goodness.
Jason, probably.
Shout out to Susan Oran. I freaking love Susan Oran. I'll put you in contact with Susan Oran. I always hype Susan Oran up. But Paul's mom is a coach, and she's been a coach for over 20 years, and she works with a lot of couples. And she's helped heal, like, you know, potential like divorces, like people who are on the brink of a divorce. Like, she's helped repair relationships, all that. And so she has this tool that she developed that is called the clearing session. And it's a few questions. I'm not going to say the questions just to protect her own IP, but these questions are really aimed at basically helping the couple have the most open communication and share anything that is truly going on within them without taking it personal.
Wow.
So like you schedule a time. You schedule a time, you have a clearing session, and I'll kind of share a little bit of how it works. So basically, before you go into it, you share an intention. So you can share like,
I love
my
that.
intention is to feel more connected with you and to just be able to have open communication. And so then what you do is like you set time aside where you'll set a timer, let's say 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, if I'm the person who's clearing Paul, or I'm the person who's clearing you, for this example, I'm asking you questions. I'm not allowed to talk.
say anything.
I'm literally just listening. And I get goosebumps because 99% of the time, we just need to be heard in what we're feeling.
This is so true.
We don't need somebody to fix it. We're actually like, this is just what's coming up.
Yeah.
And then obviously your conscious partner is listening
Yes.
to that. It's very hard to not take it personal sometimes. Sometimes you like want to cry, like you want to fight back, you know? And you just have to be like,
I would
hear
probably
you.
need to tape my mouth shut.
Yeah. Because you want to defend yourself. You're like, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
Well,
Jason's shaking his head behind there. He's
Yeah,
like,
and then you can defend yourself like when it's your time to clear, because then maybe that's what you need to clear. But at the end of that, again, 99% of the time, we feel
so much better.
reconnected. We just needed to express it. It was just like bottling up inside, and it just
Right.
needed to come out
Yeah.
and be seen.
See, this is where I struggle, because you mentioned conscious partner. You mentioned conscious partner. You have what if you don't have a conscious partner? This is where I struggle, where maybe I am triggered. I'm working through it. I know how to work through it. Sometimes, yes, I can fly off the handle, go from 0 to 100. Again, Latina in us. But still, I feel like since he hasn't done the work, and that awareness is just not there for him. And so when I'm breaking things down or breaking down how I feel, he won't know how to take it. Like, he won't understand like how to respond to that, because it just, again, I'm not being heard. I know he's not being heard, but it's like he's not conscious or aware, and he hasn't done the work, and that's where I struggle. Because there's so many other things that he hasn't like taken care of in his past relationships, like some things that he went through in the past relationships where he brings it into this relationship. And I'm like, that is not my baggage to carry. You need to work on that. Like I shouldn't like take the brunt of maybe like the marriage or getting married. Like, he still has some hangups around that. Like, just little things that still is sort of, sometimes I push it under the rug, and sometimes I'm like, don't actually confront it, only for it to blow up every
Right.
other month. Yeah. It's like when you have the same fight every few months, you know that there's something there that needs to get fixed.
Yes.
And it's not getting fixed. Because he isn't, I don't want to say willing, but yeah, I mean, he's not prioritizing. I know he's action oriented. I know he gets stuff done. He has so many properties. When this property needs, like, he's on it. Like, he knows how to take action, but he's not taking action towards the things that are actually important to me. And that has been our biggest struggle right now. And I'm not gonna cry, but like, I don't know what's happening this season right now, and I'm so sorry. This is like super vulnerable for me to share. But like, I don't know if it's just like the season with planets. I know we were talking earlier, but like, I don't feel like my emotions are truly being held and like supported. And so I don't want this relationship where I see my girlfriends, and I hate to compare, but like girlfriends whose partners are really like aware and conscious and doing the work, and they grow together, and like my relationship still feels very surface. And I'm not a surface person. You know me. I'm having these deep conversations, and like I enjoy that. But I'm not being supported in that. And so I'm kind of at a place in my life right now where like I'm questioning things, and it's coming up like obviously in my charts, like things are just like coming up for me where I've actually started to think about what my life may be like without this partner. And that's like, I've never even entertained those thoughts, but you know, it's when you're not being supported and you're not being held, I deserve that.
Yeah.
You know? And so like that's something that I'm currently going through and having to really navigate as someone who doesn't have a partner who's at that level. Is it important? And do I just lean on my friends? I'm really struggling, and I'm trying to navigate that right now.
Well, you always have us.
Vulnerable.
I know.
1000%.
Jason, can you grab her a tissue in the bathroom?
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you
This
for
way.
opening up and being vulnerable, babe. Like, it's obviously such a safe space, and as Tracy mentioned, I feel like first is like even being able to have these conversations, which I'm so grateful that you feel safe to be able to have this conversation. Because going back to that like charge, sometimes it just needs to get like heard first.
Thank you so much.
Right? It needs to get heard, kind of like Brene Brown says, like being able to be vulnerable like is what releases shame, right? Around having that thought.
Right. And just having a partner that truly like sees you in the highest regard and like holds you on this, like just really is your cheerleader. And I've been really struggling with that lately just because I don't feel supported in that way. And so that's just something I'm currently going through. So for the listener, apologize that I'm opening up like this, but I feel like sometimes it feels good to talk about it, but it also, like, what do you do when you don't have a partner that is on the same page as you? And do you continue just pushing through and like pushing my feelings aside and just keeping status quo? Or do you change? And like the thought of being single at 42 terrifies me. And I don't want to stay in something because I'm afraid to leave. Like that is like totally against everything that I stand for. And like if I was giving myself advice, I would say no, like don't stay, you know? And so I'm really struggling with that right now.
Do I have permission to share something? Jason, are you okay? Sure. We almost broke up a couple years ago. And I can feel exactly what you're feeling. Like we were just not on the same page, and I'm like, what did all this healing do to us? Because we are like so far disconnected from what was going on. And the situation's different because Jason is conscious and he is someone who's growth oriented. But sometimes we can also get stuck in an old pattern or an old habit or an old way of being. And in this particular thing, I was in a trauma loop with my business. He didn't feel seen and heard. He was dropping into an old pattern where if he didn't feel seen and heard, he was going to check out and get the feeling seen and heard from somewhere else. And it caused a huge rift in our relationship. In fact, he had to go on what we call now a walkabout, like when he was on his walkabout. And he had to go like basically leave for like 2 weeks and be alone and get the support of his friends to get perspective to see if I was really the person that he wanted to be with. And I also had to go through this series of like going through dark night of the soul. Like at that point, I was 51 years old and I'm like, I don't want to be single at 51. I just found this guy. I've spent most of my adult life being a single New Yorker, and now I'm in Arizona, and at this point I didn't have friends, and I'm like, I'm here in this hot place, I don't know where anyone is. I have no one else to hang out with besides him.
Like, this is too hard. Yeah, I get that.
But the thing that kind of brought us together was that you know, we had to understand like what the other person needed. And so maybe if Keith is open to it, you just share with, I mean, have you shared with him what you need? And yeah. So, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. He's such a wonderful man. And some people just aren't capable of that depth. And some people break through and become that person.
Yeah.
Jason, I think, has always been like a spiritual guy. He pushed it down for a long time, though, because he had a lot of gifts that he felt were bad when he was a child. And having really heightened intuition and really heightened ability to channel and stuff like that when you don't understand what it is. And also when you're raised religious and people are telling you that that's bad. He squashed it down. And when I met him, the guy was so buttoned up. I'm like, this guy's got to stick up his ass. Like, I got to like loosen him up. and like, I loosened him up. Like, and then I like unleashed this beast, this growth-oriented beast, where I was just like, we don't have to have processes every single weekend. And so, like, one of the things that actually like helped us get to like a good homeostasis was, okay, like we were this whole morning before this podcast, we were supposed to record, and we like literally were bickering and triggering each other because Jason's like, you always want to change things. Why can't we just keep it the same and blah, 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 blah. And now I have to fix all the camera angles and there's a third person and this has nothing to do with this, but it's just like really, he's irritated at me because also other stuff is going on that was triggering him and making him stressed. But sometimes it's getting taken out on me or I'm irritated with him and vice versa. But what we know now is that if we can just get to a place of like, feeling heard, like you were saying earlier, feeling like I'm hearing what you're saying and not just trying to combat. Because I grew up in a very chaotic household, also with a ton of kids. We should have been a Mexican family. We have so many kids in my family.
And but there were secrets too.
Yeah, tons of secrets. Yeah, it's like we're Catholic, so it's pretty much Mexican.
That's funny.
And our way of showing love was teasing other people. He does not like to be teased. And also, we were a very defensive family because when you're teased all the time, you're like always putting stakes in the ground. And when you're the value or how people show love in your family is that, you know, if you're athletic or you're achieving something, and that's how you get praise and love in your family, then you like your whole platform for like success in life is being like achieving. And so part of the reason why we got in that whole thing is because the way that I feel like I'm valued is if I'm working hard. And it's something I'm really having to unwind. And so I'm sharing this with you and everyone who's listening and you to know that like even in conscious relationships, it's not easy.
100%. Yeah. And I would love to share too.
Yes, I would love to hear that.
Maybe there's, some wisdom in that because even though like I do share so many like positive things about my relationship, like no relationship is perfect.
Right.
You know, like, and no person is everything. Going back to like what we're saying, there's so many things, you know, like even just consciously like comparing, like there's so many things that sometimes I'm like, Paul, like, can't you like help us with this thing around the house? Or like, you know, like things like that I want like acts of service. And that's like not his thing at all. Like, and I'm like, I'm going to call my dad and my dad would do it. And like, you know what I mean? Like there's this kind of like that piece, you know? And so it's like, nobody is everything. And then I even have to remember sometimes to like, not compare Paul to like my dad, for example. Like they're completely different people, but like I'll do that sometimes because that's, you know, somebody who I can compare to. And so that's to say like nobody's perfect. And I love your openness so much. And I know how much Keith loves you. And I know that deep down he wants to do the work and that he would never want to lose you. And so it's like knowing that, coming from that energy with him of like, and I'm sure you do, I'm not saying you don't, but like trusting that life is going to give him the opportunities to break through those patterns. And also trusting that like whatever is coming up with our partners right now, we think sometimes our minds are like, well, if this happened and he was no longer in my life, I wouldn't feel that anymore. But oftentimes, like, we're going to feel that in different ways. So it's like, this is the opportunity right now And that's what I come back to when things get really hard in my relationship. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the opportunity to work through that. And there's a reason why you two are together. And there's a reason why he attracted a really powerful, incredible woman like you.
Yeah,
that
I'm
does
proud
the
of, I
work,
mean, I
that
used to
takes
be
action,
impulsive.
that like, you know what I mean? Like, he
well, I'm
needs
glad that you said that because
Yeah.
the old Felicia, the pattern of let's blow my life up every 7 years would have already left.
Are you at the 7 years?
We're past that.
Okay.
Yeah. The Felicia who blew up her life every 7 years, we're past that pattern. But like, that was the old Felicia. So I have made it this far where I'm like, I don't want to blow up my life. I want to do the work. Like, let me just sit with these feelings. And that's why it's been really good to talk about it. I've been talking about it with my mom, and I also have a therapist, but also like knowing that I get to do this work as well. And so, but I also get to talk about it with him. I just think like sometimes he's not at that level of awareness. And so he doesn't always understand or get it, right? And so he's perfectly fine just keeping everything very surface. It gets home, okay, let's watch a Dateline, let's eat dinner. Like, that's not fulfilling me. You know what I mean?
deep, yeah.
And so there's that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work through it. But yeah, I'm not blowing my life up, but I think it's good to like talk about these things because I think sometimes too people see social media or they see relationships and like, oh my gosh, it must be so nice, must be so good. And I think everyone's going through something. Everyone's going through something. And I think that if anything, take away, it's like, do not compare your life to someone else and to continue to like do your own work. And just, I think number one is just really be aware, and also like don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Don't be afraid. And they're either going to step up and give you that, or you guys get to work through it together. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like really stepping up and really talking about my needs and like what I need fulfilled emotionally, and that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I would love to, like, at some point, like maybe there's a friend in Keith's life or like someone who can be like, hey, like someone other than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe like, because sometimes when we're hearing it from our partner, we're like, yes, yes, yes. But then we might feel the pressure. That's happened to me before.
Yeah.
Where like sometimes if there's a request, I'm a little bit resistant toward it.
That's definitely him.
But then if I hear it from another friend who's like, you do have that pattern, I'm like, damn it, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like
That's why I've kind of
Yeah.
like leaned back a little bit, because he is very resistant to like, you need to do this. I try not to be controlling. I used to
Totally.
be very controlling, but like he's resistant to force or push. It's like he has to kind of come to it at his own terms. So yeah.
And back to like when there's triggers, there's transformation. And like that is the medicine of our relationships right now. It's like we get to be triggered in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, like there's just so many deep things that I can go into of like, yeah, just what comes up in a relationship in general forces you to face like all of your deeper stuff.
Yeah.
Like for me, I always have this tendency, like if something happens, I'm like, Paul's gonna leave me. Like that's like my immediate like, you know,
That happens
default.
to me too.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's like abandonment issues.
Yeah.
It's abandonment. It's abandonment of like, I always feel like I'm going to be abandoned. And so in the past, like before, like previous relationships, I would abandon first so that I wouldn't get abandoned. Because I'm like,
that was my,
you know.
that was the blowing up my life. Let me leave before this
first.
person leaves me. Yeah.
Well,
same.
sometimes when Jason and I get into something, we're like, he's like, "Ugh," and I'm like, well, why are you with me if you even liked it? Like I'm trying to push him away. You know, it's like, I'm like, why are you even with me if, you know, you think that about me, or if I'm like this and you don't like it? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm trying to work through this, not like end the relationship.
Yes.
Right?
That's
It
a
brings
common
up all
thing
of
I
our
say.
stuff.
I'm sorry. That's a common thing I say too. Is it the Gemini in us?
I know.
I'm like,
why are you with me?
you with me if you don't like this thing about me? Why are you with me? And I just actually said this the other day. I'm like, wait, what? Why are you with me then?
That we just want to be accepted for who we are.
I'm like, this is who I am.
Yes. Take it or leave it.
Don't try to change me.
Don't leave it. Yeah. That is,
Thanks for letting me share, ladies.
Thanks for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
I admire that about you so much. Like your vulnerability and the way that you're able to express and just share from your heart is such a beautiful thing about you. Like one of my favorite things about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just love
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Thank you for listening.
And that's what
Love you.
creates those deep connections with people so quickly that you're able to like drop in. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that.
Well, I want to talk a little bit because you brought this up, authenticity, and we talked about it on our original podcast that the sound didn't record or whatever. Or only one camera recorded or something.
That was a great conversation.
I know, it was so good.
No one gets to hear it, but
no one gets to hear it. Maybe we'll somehow recreate it someday. It was amazing. I think sometimes, obviously, like, I feel like I'm a very authentic person, and I know that you two are very authentic. When is there like a boundary with being authentic and like oversharing versus, or like being in a season of where you're not ready to share something? Because like I'm in a season of like, I'm coming out of this season of feeling very ashamed of like how my business has descaled because it's been intentional, but feeling like I'm going backwards, right? In order to like build something back up. And it's been very humbling for me because all the things that I want to do, I can't do them because the finances aren't there. And I've got used to being able to invest in a lot of different things for business. And now I've scaled back my team. We're in a process of like rebuilding everything. But it's not something that I'm like in a season of being able to totally share publicly because there's so much that, I have to kind of keep quiet at this point until we get to the next level. So where do you guys see like the balance between authenticity, being fully in alignment, like sharing and all those things?
Oh, I love this. I am working on being more vulnerable. And I feel like vulnerability is authenticity.
Yes.
Because if you could be vulnerable, like that is the most authentic thing that you can do is like share from your heart what's really coming up. So I'm working on that. I've noticed, so it's been eclipse season. So there has been
tough.
a
It's
lot of lessons.
It's very hard right
retrograde, like all of the stuff.
Are your guys'
come up.
electronics? Like my laptop isn't charging and it keeps crashing every night.
My phone too.
My Apple Watch, I'm not wearing it because it doesn't charge. Like things are weird right now.
Things
with
are
multiple
weird.
things.
And
Our
emotionally,
air conditioner just broke.
weird. And emotionally too, it's been like
yeah, my emotions have been all over the place.
All
I
over
cry
the
every day.
place.
I'm crying
Yeah.
every day.
Same.
I'm just gonna tell you right now. I knew I was gonna cry. Like I cry every day right now. Yeah, sorry.
I've been crying too, and I've been getting like triggered at things. And so I had this awareness through eclipse season that growing up, I was actually like most of us, super authentic. I was very blunt with people.
Oh, yes.
And that's a Sagittarius thing. It's like we're blunt. And then at some point, something happened that I started being a people pleaser. And I'm still trying to pinpoint what that thing was. And I don't want to associate myself with a people pleaser, but I noticed that at some point I started like not sharing my thoughts. Being like not wanting to hurt other people by my true and authentic opinion, and so I've noticed that pattern. Like it happened at some point, and I'll at some point do an episode when I have the revelation of where it happened. But recently I've realized how much I love validation, and that's me being vulnerable. It to the point where if somebody doesn't validate something that I do, I'm like, why aren't you telling me this is amazing? And like even with Paul, I'm like, how did I do? And like if he's not like, you did amazing, I'm like, like it kind of like stings a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that. And so I'm releasing the need for validation right now.
Interesting. Are words of affirmation your love language?
100%. So if I don't hear it, I'm like, where is it? And the problem with that too is that I do find I end up kind of getting along with people. So like in my life, I've had a lot of validation.
Yeah.
And so recently, I'm not ready to share what it was. I'll share it with you ladies behind the scene. But recently I had an experience where I found out that I triggered some people.
I have been told this many times too, not from you, but like I have triggered them.
I trigger people all the time.
And how does that feel for you when you hear it? Because I'm curious how, like when you hear that you triggered someone, how does that occur for you? You could be totally honest.
It doesn't, I'm not bothered by it.
I'm not either.
I'm not bothered by it.
See, I love that.
Yeah, only because I've had a lot of instances in my life where people just didn't like me or didn't want the best for me, or they've actually flat out said, I've actually had clients that are like, you trigger me. And maybe that was what brought them into my worlds,
I love that
but it
you
doesn't
don't-
bother me. Yeah, I'm more just curious as to what was the trigger and what was happening, like why, so yeah. But yeah, I would love
That's
to hear.
powerful. Because see, for me, when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, like what did I do wrong? And I wanted it, like it was almost like it stung.
Yeah.
And so that's when I knew, I'm like, there's some work around this.
Yeah.
Because why did it sting, right?
Yeah.
So
Triggers are treasures or transformation, however
that's
you want to
literally
say it.
why I had this reminder. So I found this out, and then I called Paul, and I was like, hey babe, like, can I clear something with you? It's not about us, but I'm like so triggered. And especially because I didn't find out from the people who I triggered. I found out from a client who overheard somebody talking about, so it was kind of like, it was an interesting indirect feedback where I was like, I can't ask why, or like, I can't ask more. And I feel like it was divine. It was like divine that happened. And so I cleared it with Paul, and basically Paul's reminder, he's an 8 on the Enneagram, so he doesn't give a fuck if he triggers people. He's like, babe, he's like, do you want people to transform, or do you want to be liked?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, boom. I was like, can I quote you, please?
Yeah.
Do you want to be like, he said, do you want to be liked, or do you want to create transformation?
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And he said, if there's no triggers, there's no transformation. And that helped. But
but I think something that's
interesting.
interesting with your line of business is, you know, and you guys you're growing and you work with so many people. You know, if someone cancels, I know for me in my past businesses, when someone would cancel, I would take it so personal. Yes. They don't like me. Why don't they like my product? Why don't they like the gym? Yes. So you're probably also still going through that. Like when someone talks badly about your business or wants to cancel the business, it's easy to take it personal because it's so close to you.
Has nothing to do with you.
Because it's so close to you. So like, it's probably a mix of also too the validation piece. Like for me, I think, and I don't know if this is age and I am older than you, but like, I don't necessarily need the validation anymore. And so like for me, but I absolutely did for many, many years. And so for me, it's almost like, ooh, like how did I trigger you? Like, you know what I mean?
I love that.
Like it's not, like, I don't get to
How
like,
fun.
yeah. I was like, oh really? So cool. But I don't take it on myself. And only because I know everything that I'm doing is in my highest integrity, and I don't need to prove to them anything. And so like, I know like my actions are clean and pure, and I'm sure yours are too, but like, it's probably this need of like, oh, like, did I do something wrong? Back to like the secrecy or like the things that maybe happened in childhood. Like, what did I do wrong? You know?
Was I a bad girl?
Yeah.
Or like, you know?
Like,
and
what did I do wrong?
I love this reflection. Like, that's goals.
Yeah.
Because what I came down to was like in the moment when I cleared it with Paul too, I looked back at the situation of like what the thing that I triggered somebody around was. And I was honest with myself. I was like, did I say something that I don't align with, that wasn't true, that didn't come from my heart? Did I purposely try to offend somebody? And I'm like, no. I actually, if anything, I spoke from the heart. And with that situation, I really liked what I did with that situation. And so it helped me kind of repattern that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't need everybody's validation. Like, not everybody is going to resonate with your message. Not everyone's going to resonate with what you say. And that is okay.
Yeah.
Like, that is my reminder. And so kind of back to your question, I feel like I'm still sometimes like, do I share this? Do I not? And I think it's because I'm repatterning the need for validation. And I want to come back to a place where I'm fully sharing authentically from my heart without worrying what other people think.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. And I
love
think
it
with
too.
authenticity and sharing, it's when we overthink it is when we're not sharing from the heart, right?
Exactly.
When we're like overthinking and we're like worrying about what we're going to say. And that's where we're like, am I going to offend this person? Am I going to offend that person? And that's where the people pleasing comes in. Back in the day, or this was a few years ago when I had triggered a client, and she was actually, she created a story in her head about like my content. She was triggered by how much I show up on social media. And she's like, you know, and we had a conversation about it, a coaching session. She's like, she's like, this was really interesting. I was so triggered by how much you were showing up on social media. And, you know, I created this story of like, oh, you know, social media is just so important to Felicia. It's like the most important thing to her. All she does is want to show up on social media. And she realized, she was like, I was triggered by how you were showing up because I wanted to show up that way.
That's typically what it is.
And that's why, again, back to like, a lot of times I'm just like, I'm so curious why you were triggered. And we were always trying to get her to just show up and talk about her business and show up on social media.
And she wouldn't do it.
She wouldn't do it. And she created the story that I wanted attention and that all I do is create content and I have all this time spent just creating content. And I've honed the skill. I actually create content fairly quickly. It's not something I sit with and try to like figure out all day. And so like, she just created this story in her head, and it turns out like, I would just love to show up like you show up, Felicia. And I was creating the story of like people who show up just want attention. And she secretly wanted to do the same. It was interesting to work through that.
I love that because ultimately everyone's our mirror. So it's like if somebody's triggering you, like she was triggered by you, she in a sense wanted to have similar qualities as you with your consistency, with your ability to take action, and with your creativity. And then her being triggered was keeping her from doing the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That she
also,
really wanted
the
to
fear
do.
of what are people going to think? Are they going to think that why am I talking about my business? Like she was worried about all of the naysayers and the people who probably weren't her people anyways.
Yeah.
And what they were going to think about her. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I love this reminder.
Yeah.
Like after this podcast episode, I'm like, I no longer care if I trigger people.
I love it.
I'm going to purposely trigger people. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I know I trigger people a lot. And I also had this need for validation because I'm a 7 on the Enneagram with an 8 wing. So I have both sides of it. You know, for years in my company, they call me Tough Love Tracy because I just say it as it is. And I've changed a little bit over the years and maybe deliver information in a little bit of a different way. But I truly feel like it's my job to catalyze people and move them in a direction. And the way that I know how to do that is to poke them, but just in a way, like get them thinking, get them like motivated to do something in a way that they are like, but then it moves them into action.
Because it does. It like activates.
Sometimes, it's like this activation thing. So, you know, there's probably a better way to do it sometimes. And I do think that I have a tendency to be motivating to my community and stuff like that. And I want to also talk about something that you just spoke about with the content, because as I've been branching out into this new message, I had the deepest fear about showing up on my personal Instagram. Like I could throw on my Instagram on Flourish and Thrive and talk about anything, and it's easy because I'm just like, oh, I got this crowd. But like showing up on my I Am Tracy Matthews account, doing a live like I did it last night, and I got some feedback because I've been doing all these workshops and stuff for my new program, The Art of Reinvention, and I got some feedback from a friend of mine who was on it, and she's like, you know, there's really something to be said about you showing up and just being a little bit more you, and instead of less scripted. And at first I was like a little bit like,
Like, what do you mean?
everyone said it was great. Like, don't tell me that it wasn't good. And there's something right about it, because like if I felt like I was in my full like genius with how I'm communicating this new offer, which I know it's a good offer, I completely believe in it, but there's something that's holding me back because it feels so close to my heart that you don't want to mess it up, right? You don't want to say the wrong thing, or you want to make sure that the message is coming across the right way. And so it's interesting to see how, as we evolve as entrepreneurs and business owners, when we're at our next level, how we do have to really step back and almost be a beginner again. And the big message and lesson for me is that if I can catalyze and like motivate people like at a very deep level in one audience, I know that I can do it anywhere. It's just about showing up with conviction and authenticity instead of
Perfectionism, maybe?
Yeah, or trying to like hide a little bit or play small or whatever, just getting better with the messaging and everything.
I love that reflection.
I just need to bring that same level of authenticity and conviction to my personal social media.
Yeah.
This was such a good conversation.
Oh my
you
gosh.
guys.
So good.
Should we wrap it up?
This has been so good. I know. I feel like we can just go on and on about so much more growth topics, but we're going to have a part 2.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Part 2.
let's do it.
Sure, after eclipse season.
Okay, so why don't we, just because we're going to be dropping this on everyone's podcast, Felicia, where can people find you?
You know, I hang out over on Instagram at Felicia Romero, just my first and last name, FeliciaRomero.com, or you can listen to the Hi Felicia podcast. I know it's on there now if you're listening, but yeah, Instagram.
Awesome.
And same. I love Instagram. That's like my go-to platform. So it is at Annette Sky Oran, 1 N, ANETTE, Sky with an E, and then Oran. That's my best place. And then my podcast is the Conscious Creators Podcast.
Awesome. And you can find me at I Am Tracy Matthews on Instagram, and the best place to find me, my website's still being built, so this is the Creatives Rule the World podcast, and you can find me there.
Yay. Thank you.
Amazing.
Let's connect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for listening to the show today. This is Tracy Matthews signing off. Till next time. And if you're still with us, thank you for holding the space in the container for us to just share like that. And I don't know about you, but this conversation was really vulnerable. It really cracked me open in all the right ways. From really talking about sisterhood wounds and speaking from the truth of risking rejection in today's world, plus reminding myself that healing happens when we allow ourselves to be fully seen. It's messy, it's magical, it's everything in between. So if you've ever felt moved by what we shared today, I would love for you to take a moment to text this episode to a friend. And since it's my birthday, I'm just going to ask because I love birthday gifts, but not the kind that you think. Pull out your phone right now. And if you haven't given us a positive rating and review yet, I would be so honored if you just pulled out your phone and gave us one right now. And then if you do, screenshot it and send it to me on Instagram or tag me on Instagram in your stories. It would be the best birthday gift ever. And thanks in advance if you decide to do that. And if you would love to follow, which I highly recommend, go follow the Hi Felicia podcast in the Conscious Creators podcast. And we'll have the social media links for Felicia and Annette in the show notes. Okay, ciao for now. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. See you soon.